Welcome everybody to the final class in the 13th chapter. This is the Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. As usual, we would like to acknowledge Swami Paramarthananda Saraswati for the traditional rendering of Vedanta as it was done for over 1,000 years, starting with Adi Shankaracharya. And we'll say a small prayer to honor everybody in this lineage. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankaracharya-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Salutations to the lineage starting with Lord Sadashiva, with Adi Shankaracharya in the middle, and continuing up to our immediate teacher, Swami Paramarthananda Saraswati. With that, we will continue where we left off. So, in the 13th chapter, the topics, there were 6 questions that Arjuna asks, and Bhagavan explains those. And finally, in the last portion that we are seeing now, it is about Jnana Sadhanani and Jnana Phalam. So now we are in the phase with the portion of Jnana Phalam. So, Jnana Phalam, fruits of knowledge. So we started the 29th shloka last time, and before that, so 28th is where the Phalam starts. So we will just recap 28th again for the sake of continuity. Samam sarpeshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram vinashyatva vinashyantam yah pashyati sa pashyati. They who see the Supreme Lord, Parameshwaram, Supreme Lord, that refers to the Brahman here. It is not Ishvara, it refers to the pure Brahman. Those who see the Supreme Lord, who resides alike in all beings, who is the imperishable in the perishable bodies, they alone see. So, first benefit is Samadharshanam, equal view of all beings. Now, how could you say this clarity of equal vision of all beings being a fruit of the knowledge? That will be continued in the next shloka. So in the next shloka, Samam Pashyanti Sarvatra Samavastitam Ishvaram Nahinastyat Atmanatmanam Tato Yati Param Gatim. Because that person who uniformly sees in all beings the Ishvara, the Lord who exists everywhere alike, Samam Pashyan hi sarvatra, the one who sees uniformly, Samam, uniform, Samavastitam Ishwaram, everything is uniform, the Lord who exists everywhere alike, Samam, uniformly in all beings, the Brahman, Atma is there. Samavastitam Ishwaram. Vastitam means residing, who exists alike Ishwaram. Ishvara here refers to Brahman, not refers to Brahman plus Maya Ishvara. That here it refers to Brahman. Nahinasthyatmanatmanam. Hinasti means hinasti means they do not cause self-ruin. Atmanatmanam, by one's own self. Tato yati param gatim. Then they attain the highest goal. Okay, so here the vision that's talked about is Advaita Darshanam. Okay, some equal view of all beings. How is this a fruit? We are going to see now. Advaita Darshanam, Abheda Darshanam, which means that person has got the right vision. So this person is called a seer. Have you heard the word seer? In the seers of those times, the old ages, seers means those who see very clearly. A sage is called a seer. Even though we see many things, nobody calls us a seer, Swamiji says. So seer refers to one who sees through and very clearly everything. the right vision of the world, the complete understanding of the world, which we call samyak darshanam, the proper perspective, they see that. A right balanced vision is being aware of both Purusha and Prakriti, not only in the entire creation, but in every living being, because we are a mix of Purusha and Prakriti. So Swamiji would tell this joke. So when somebody asks for your biodata or your resume, in that context, don't say I am Nirguna Nirvikara Satya Chetana Tattvam. So one joke he would say is that a student of Vedanta, somebody asked him to fill a job application form, and this person filled and asked date of birth, and he just wrote not applicable. So because Aham Brahmasmi, I'm Anaditwan, I don't have a beginning, I'm ageless, eternal. So he wrote not applicable. But that is not the right answer, because you have to work in that context. It is with the Prakriti. You have to work with the Prakriti. It is not the age of the Purusha, but it's the age of the Prakriti that has a certain age. So one has to understand both the Purusha and the Prakriti aspects. There are occasions when Prakriti can create problems. At that time, mortality frightens, actions become a burden, life becomes a bore, and when a person is troubled by life, noisy activity, and when life becomes a drag, then a person requires a different channel. That is when you tune in to the Purusha. Okay, that is Samadarshanam. And here, that person who sees equality in all things, they do not cause self-ruin. And what causes self-ruin? Na hinasti atmanatmanams. Atmanatmanam means atmana atmanam, by the self, by the self. So, which means using oneself to damage oneself. It's all self-inflicted damage. This is through body identification instead of identifying with a all-pervading consciousness. According to Vedanta, the world does not create problems. Because of our ignorance, we are hurting ourselves. And once I identify with the body, we become a karta, right? As Atma, I am not a karta, but once deha abhimana comes, that is identification with the body, one becomes a karta. And this word atmana atmanam, by the atma just means self. Here it's with using our own mind to damage our mind and body. So atmana atmanam nashtati. So self, that's called self-ruin. Okay. So, and we've seen this before in the 6th chapter also, lifting the self by the self. Atma as a friend and foe to the self, seeing the self by the self. So in the 6th chapter, for example, in the 5th shloka, Uttaredatmanatmanam Natmanam avashadayet Atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu Atmaiva ripuratmanaha. So it's a Granthi shloka. So how many Atmas are there? Same Atma, which means self, can refer to the mind-body complex. It can refer to the consciousness. It can refer to the body. It can refer to the mind or the full self. Let them lift the self, that's the mind-body complex, by the self, mind-body. Let them not lower themselves through self-criticism. The self, that's the mind-body complex, alone is indeed the friend of oneself. And the self is verily the foe of oneself. So in Advaita Vedanta, it is us who are responsible. Of course, the external agents can cause some unfavorable circumstances, but it is because of our own ignorance that we are hurting ourselves. It can hurt the body, it can cause some pain, but it cannot do anything to unravel us. That is the idea in Vedanta. And then in the next shloka also, Atmana Atmanam. So I'm trying to show where this word Atmana, where all this word we've encountered, Atmana Atmanam, right? Atmana Atmanam. We've encountered it so many times in the 6th chapter. So in the 6th chapter, which is on the Dhyana Yoga, self as a friend and foe to oneself. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatvaivātmanājitah anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. The self mind body complex is like a close relative of oneself. For whom? For one who has conquered the self, which is the mind body complex, by the self. For the unconquered self, that's the mind body complex, the self, which is the mind body complex, will remain like an enemy in the place of an enemy. Okay. And then this again comes once more in the 20th shloka. So if you go to the 20th shloka, you can see this used again. 20th shloka. Okay. Yatro paramate chittam niruttam yoga sevaya yatra chaitvatmanatmanam pashyan atmani tushyati. When the mind has attained quietude and is restrained by the practice of yoga, and when by the self, that is the mind, they see the capital self, Atma, the real consciousness, and they rejoice in the Atma. So that's another place where Atmana Atmanam. So in the most important thing is when they see Samadarshanam, their identification with the body becomes less. Therefore, they don't create self-harm. Okay, is it clear to everybody? Yeah. So some of these, it requires a little explanation. That's why it's Shankaracharya, fortunately, gives us the explanation. Electricity is very useful, but electricity can cause an explosion when there is leaking natural gas, right? So like that, Atma can be both. The mind-body complex can be both a friend and a foe. Prakrit eva cha karmani kriyamanani sarpashah yah pashyati tatatmanam akartaram sapashyati. And prakriti eva cha karmani, and one who sees that it is only the prakriti that does all the actions. Prakriti eva cha karmani, prakriti only does all these actions. Kriyamanani means does. Sarvashaha, all these actions. Prakriti eva, all karmani is actions. Kriyamanani means doing. Yah pashyati, and one who sees, tatatmanam akartaram sapashyati, and also tata, also atmanam akartaram sapashyati. That is, the atma, the real consciousness, is actionless. That person alone sees. So the third benefit is prayojanam akritratva prapti, discovering that one is not the doer of any action. Okay, so because as long as we think we are the karta, we can never avoid karmas, and if we are trapped, okay, this person has hurt me, I'm going to hurt this person back. So then it creates a vicious cycle. Whereas when you take a step back, see the big picture, and let small things dissolve, then we don't identify as a karta. So, and we tune into our higher nature, and therefore we avoid unwanted karmas that can cause more papam and punya. Okay, and therefore karta, we are avoiding being a karta. If we think we are the karta, we will feel like we have to do something, and it can cause harm. Whereas because karta will eternally be associated with karma. Whereas if you're not the karta, if you're just a sakshi, then you're if you identify that way, the chances of doing bad actions is lesser. If I am a karta, I can never escape from being a bhokta. And the bhokta situation is a choiceless, helpless situation. If you do karmas, you will reap the benefits, good or bad. Okay. So the third benefit is the one who sees it is only the prakriti that does all the actions, and that my higher self is actionless. We are still doing actions, but there is a little bit of detachment. I am not like compelled, so I won't do things which will add to my baggage of karma. So it is, you're doing things with a detachment, not with this intensity and things like that which cause more problems. So this is a subtle point, discovering that one is not the doer of any action. Is it clear? And this, so if you see, Krishna is repeating a lot of things that he has said before. Prakrteva cha karmani kriyamanani. Prakrteva sarvasha karmani. All actions are done by the Prakriti alone. Previously in the third chapter, which we just chanted, this we all chanted this morning, it says actions are done by the gunas of Prakriti. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Look at the words. Prakrite kriyamanani karmani sarvashah. Guna is absent. Prakrite cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashah. You see, exactly, Krishna is repeating again and again and again. The guna is absent. Here it says gunas of Prakriti. Here it just says Prakriti. In the third chapter, gunas of Prakriti. So the gunas of Prakriti alone do all the actions. Ahankara vimudatma, one who's identified with the ego, thinks I am doing. Kartaham iti manyate, that person thinks I am doing. Whereas Tattva-vittu mahabhaho guna-karma vibhagayoho guna-guneshu bhattanta iti matva na sajjate. Tattva-with, one who knows the self, oh mighty armed Arjuna, guna-karma vibhagayo, knows the difference between the gunas causing and the karmas. Guna guneshu vartanta iti matva na sajjate. That this person is not trapped because it is the guna guneshu vartanta iti matva na sajjate. This person knows that it's the gunas doing this, and this person is not affected. It's not sajjate, means it's not bound by the karma. And Swamiji always says this is one of the abused verses. These verses, because people can say, oh, okay, I didn't do anything. It's my gunas and Prakriti which did everything. I am free. So Duryodhana blamed God. Janami janmam nacha me pravrittihi janami dharmam nacha me pravrittihi janamya dharmam nacha me nivrittihi tenaiva dehena. It is, I know what is right, but I'm not able to do it. I know what is wrong, but I'm helplessly bound to do it. And it is, I blame it on the Lord which is sitting in me and making me do things. So Duryodhana blames. Like that, Swamiji would tell a joke. There was once a criminal. This criminal was caught and a verdict was passed. That criminal knew that this judge was a ardent devotee of ardent student of Bhagavad Gita. So he quotes this verse and says, you are imprisoning me. I am the Atma. I don't do any karma. So why are you imprisoning me? Then the judge told him, I am not imprisoning you. In fact, I cannot imprison you. You are the consciousness which is all pervading. I cannot put you behind bars because you're all pervading. And you cannot be accommodated in a prison. You pervade the universe. In fact, all prisons exist in you. I am not imprisoning you. You are akarta abhokta. But uh, you said the body only did all these crimes, therefore I'm imprisoning the body. So the judge gave that response. So this is a careful verse. We have to interpret with care. How does karma trap? That's how karma traps. As long as one is karta, one can never avoid karmas. Therefore, karta will externally be associated with karma. If one is a karta, due to accumulation of punyam and papam, one can never escape being a bhokta. Bhokta is a rebirth. The bhokta situation, status, is a choiceless, helpless situation. In the Yoga Sutras also it says, karma shukra Karma Shukra Krishnam Yoginas Trividamitaresham. Karma Ashukla Akrishnam. Karma is neither white nor black for a yogi. For others, it is of three kinds: white, black, and gray. Okay. So wise person is very much aware of that. That person does not identify with the body complex. So that person's karma, it comes from a higher status, and it doesn't leave residues of punyam and papam. Okay. They do not say I am doing. They say in my presence, Prakriti does everything. The mind-body complex alone does everything. Then who am I? I am akartaram chapashyati. I am the non-doer. The actual self is the non-doer. Any questions here? So then who is doing who is getting angry? Who is doing all the things? Who has this desires? There are all these questions that come up, right? So we've talked about it many times. It is so for this you have to understand that there is the actual consciousness, that's a Brahman, and then there is a reflected consciousness. Okay, the reflected consciousness is called Chidabhasa. So it's like light. So there is sunlight. The sun is shining on the moon, and at night you have the moonlight, which is illuminating everything. So it's like that. The actual Atma, all pervading Atma, needs a medium to shine on. It cannot shine on a dull surface. Like a drop of water. You see a sun in the drop of water, like the sun is all illuminating. Next, we're going to see that example. Bhagavan gives, to illustrate the Brahman, he gives two examples: the sun and space, Akasha. Akasha is space. So sun illuminates everything. And when the sun is on the other side of the earth, it hits the moon and the moon shines light. Okay. So the Shukshma Shariram, the subtle body which consists of the mind, that is like the moon. It reflects the sunlight and it illuminates the entire earth. The earth is like the body, right? So, and there's still light. So whenever there's light, there's consciousness, but it's limited consciousness. It's not this bright light. And what is this consciousness? When it reflects on the moon, it's moonlight. When it reflects on a red surface, you get red light. When it reflects on a surface which is very dull, you get shadows and everything. Those are the gunas. The gunas are this edge, that's a dull surface, all that striations. When it's reflecting their shadows, some areas are bright, some areas where it's reflected are not good. That's all the gunas. That's how the Sukshma Shariram is made of. All the striations that you see, that's the gunas. And it is because of that certain things happen. And this lights up in a certain way. There is consciousness. There is consciousness all through the body. But because of the limitations and the way this happens, there are certain things that happen. But since there is consciousness, you can make the surface smooth, and you can make sure that you don't act according to the impulse. So there you have the free will there. Is it clear? So the pure consciousness, that is the actual you. It is reflecting a portion of this. But the I, it refers to this consciousness, the Brahman that's there. This light, when it's reflected, And another example they give is of a metal ball. This metal ball is dull, like that our body and the ego, everything is like a dull, heavy ball. And when you take it and put it in fire, it becomes red hot and it glows. When you take it out and you keep it, it sheds light, it glows. But who does the heat belong to? The heat belongs to the fire. But who does the weight of the ball belong to? It belongs to the ball. It doesn't belong to the fire. Fire is light. Because of the weight, it drags down. It thinks it is lighting up everything, this metal ball, but it borrowed something. That is the confusion we are all under. We think, oh, okay, my mind, I'm this thing, but it is coming from somewhere else. When you know that distinction, the way you would perform actions is different. That is the core of Vedanta. Is the subtle point understood? And that's where all the problems come. Once we start identifying with that heavy ball, we sink. When we identify with the fire, we light up. And the entire of Vedanta is to get still the first yoga, to still the mind, meditate, and be able to see this. Continuing. Yatha bhuta pratak bhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadyate tada. When one realizes the whole variety of beings as resting in that one Atma, and also as having evolved from that one alone, that person becomes Brahman. It's a very important shloka. Yatha bhuta pratak bhavam, the whole variety of beings, ekastam anupashyati, as resting ekastam, in that one alone. In that what one? The Atma, the entire. So we are, all these beings are resting in consciousness. If only consciousness in the world. And this matter, the Maya, it comes, it's everything is in the sea of consciousness. Tata eva cha vistaram. Vistara means spreading or also evolving from that alone. So it's only the consciousness. From the consciousness, all this Maya, this inert, unmanifest thing, evolves as the matter. And as having evolved from that alone, that person becomes Brahman. So this person knows exactly how creation has happened. When that knowledge is clear, one becomes Brahman. Okay, so it again explains how from Maya, Brahman creates the entire manifested universe. Maya is the latent form of the matter. There is Maya and Brahman. Those are the only two things. Both are Anadimat, we saw, beginningless. Both are responsible for the universe. Each one, without one or other, you can't have the universe. Maya is inert. Maya has no consciousness. It relies on Brahman to create it, to like a dough, to make it into bread, all that. So one of the examples that is given is space. So whole variety. Okay. So all these beings as resting in this consciousness, that space. So Brahman is likened to the consciousness. So if you're seeing the previous shloka, when one realizes the whole variety of beings as resting in that Atma, in the sea of consciousness, so it's like resting in space and all these things. So Brahman cannot be illustrated. So that's why they give different analogies to illustrate, right? Here, Krishna uses two analogies. One is space and the other is sunlight. Okay. Here, Brahman is illustrated using space. So there's various levels of understanding of space. So carefully watch this. This is a little, you will understand a lot if you pay close attention here. The space, initially when we start reading Vedanta, you'll realize, so there's a consciousness within us. right? And the space is within an enclosure, for example, the building walls. So that's the initial level of understanding. Then there is space, of course, within any enclosure, not just buildings. So there's space within buildings, there's space within a car, there's space within a vessel, there is everywhere. So there's consciousness, not just within me or humans, but there's consciousness in all living beings. That is the next level. Then there is also space outside the enclosure, and it is one continuous space. Space is continuous. That portion of the space is occupied by a vessel, XYZ. This is occupied by a car. This is occupied by something like that, or by a human being. There is consciousness outside living things too, and it's one continuous consciousness. So it's like space. And this finally, the enclosure is just resting in space. There's only space. Enclosure is resting in space. We are all existing in and are sustained by consciousness. Is it clear? So that is the example between space and Brahman. So this is how it's explained to illustrate the understanding of Atma, because Atma is very intangible. Akasha or space is used. And the common features of space and Atma are Ekatvam, Akhandatvam, both are only one, Ekatvam. Sarva Vyapakatvam, so all pervading, Vyapti, it's pervading there. Both are all pervading. Space is there everywhere. Achalatvam, does space move? No, space does not move. Asangatvam, is space polluted? You can never pollute space. You can pollute the air, you can pollute a liquid, you can pollute a solid. You cannot pollute space. Space just accommodates everything. You cannot pollute it. You can't do anything to it. It just accommodates you, and that thing can move away. Will that portion of the space, when the air molecules are all gone or everything is gone, will that portion of space be tainted? No. You can never pollute space. Nirvikaratvam, both are unchanging. You can't warp space. I think space is like that. People now are asking, can we warp space? Does in the presence of a black hole, is space warped? These are questions people are asking. But nirvikaratvam, both are unchanging. You cannot shrink space. Sarva adharatvam, both accommodate everything. Sarvam, it accommodates everything. Sukshmatvam, both are very subtle. Okay. Akhanda means partless. Khanda means parts. So ekatvam, akhandatvam means it's just one. So do you see all this? So all this you have to reflect upon to see, because we cannot cognize Brahman or Atma. So these are many ways to illustrate, to give a feel for things. Okay. Continuing. Anaditvan nirgunatvat paramatmayam avyayah sharirastopi kaunteya na karoti na lipyate. Anaditvan nirgunatvat, having no beginning. Anadi means without a beginning. We saw that Anadi, and like that's the person who wrote on the job application. Not applicable. Date of birth, not applicable, because I am Anaditvam. So having no beginning, nirgunatvat, and possessing no gunas or qualities. I am Paramatma Avyayah, the supreme self, self with a capital S, not, is imperishable. Sharirastopi kaunteya, though dwelling in the body. Sharirasthiti means dwelling in the body. O kaunteya, O Arjuna, son of Kunti. Na karoti, na lipyate. It neither acts nor lipyate means nor is it tainted. The Atma is imperishable. Example is a dream. When we are dreaming, we can dream being killed, but in reality, nothing has happened to us when we wake up. Knowing that we are the Atma is like waking up from a dream. This is the imperishable part of it. And not tainted. It is only when there's a change in the attributes of a substance can one say it is tainted. If the substance has no attributes, then it can never be tainted. Because Atma has no gunas or qualities, you cannot you cannot taint it. Okay, it has no gunas and it is imperishable. It's not tainted. Clear? So Bhagavan, we already saw Bhagavan's example of space. Now he's going to explicitly say. So it's kind of implicitly said here because yatha bhuta pratak bhavam ekastam manupashyati, and realize a whole variety of beings as resting in that Atma. It's like saying as though resting in space. He's kind of hinted here, but now he's explicitly going to give two examples. Space, Akasha, and Surya Prakasha has sunlight. Both are Bhagavan's favorite Upanishad, this Kathopanishad. Bhagavan lifts things left, right, and center. There's no shame. He just borrows things from the Upanishads. So both of them, these are derived, borrowed from the Kathopanishad. Beautiful shloka. Yatha sarvagatam saukhya ahakasham nopalipyate sarvatrabastito dehe tatatmanopalipyate. Sarvagatam saukshmyat means akasha, sarvagatam akasha, all pervading space. Sarvagatam means all pervading space. Akasham na upalipyate, which means it is not tainted due to what? Saukshmyat, because it's very subtle. You can't taint it. Tata, the sarvatra avastito dehe, the Atma, tata Atma sarvatra avastito dehe na no upalipyate. Like that, the Atma present everywhere in the body. There's consciousness all over the body. It is not tainted. Even though the body is dirty and it's tainted by all kinds of bad things, thoughts, and even physical things, the Atma is not tainted. Krishna points out that you have to train your mind to understand Brahman. And one of the trainings suggested in the Shastra, in the Upanishads, is meditating upon space. Just as the way space is not tainted, space holds everything, like that, the Atma, that is the true us self. This light that is reflected as red light or whatever because of the nature of our subtle body, that creates problems. But as long as you realize that the original source of light, that's the cause. Without that original source, this reflected light won't be there. It's the reflected light causing problems on that object. That when you realize, there is freedom. It's a very subtle point. So there are two things that are talked about: immanence and transcendence. It is associated with everything, but it's not affected by anything. It is untainted, like an example of a movie theater screen. You see like a ocean waves, but do we go? We don't wipe the movie theater screen after a scene with water. Like that, it is associated, the movie theater screen is associated with everything, fire, water, everything, but it is not it is not tainted by anything. It's associated with everything, immanence, but it's not tainted. It is transcendent. Continuing, yatha prakashayat ekah kritsnam lokamimam ravihi Kshetram Kshetri Tata Kritsnam Prakashayati Bharata. Now the example, previously space, now the example of the sun. Ekaha yata prakashayati. So as the one, Ravihi is the sun. Yata Ravihi, yata Eka Ravihi, that is the one sun, Prakashayati Kritsnam Lokam, illumines the entire world. Prakashayati means illumines. Kritsnam Lokam, the whole Kritsnam means the entire whole world. Tata, like that. Kshetram Kshetri Kritsnam Prakashayati Bharata. Kshetram, the field, Kshetri, the one who, the Lord of the field, illumines the entire field. The field refers to the body. It can refer to the universe also. So it is inert here. So we saw the Kshetrajna, right? So that is the entire chapter. If you consider the Kshetram as the body, it illumines the entire body. The Atma illumines the entire body. So it is like the sun illuminating the entire world, like that. This Lord of the body illumines the entire body. Not just it illumines this body, it illumines every body. You can have many moons. Each moon is like a subtle body, and each planet associated, every planet has a satellite, right? The moon or many planets have a satellite. This satellite illumines at night this planet. But there's only one sun, like that. It illumines all the fields. Final shloka. Kshetrajnayor evam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye vidur yanti te param. Those who in this manner know the distinction between the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, that is the field and the knower of the field, through the eye of knowledge, they know the freedom from Prakriti, the cause of all beings, and go to the Supreme. So they know the cause of all beings and they go to the Supreme. Bhuta Prakritim Moksham Cha. So they Prakriti Moksha means freedom from Prakriti. Ye vidur yati te param. They know the yanti te param means they go to the Supreme. So they know the cause. Ye vidur bhuta, all the beings, the cause of all beings, and they, through the eye of knowledge, jnana chakshusha, through the eye of knowledge, they know the freedom from Prakriti, and they know the cause of all beings, and they go to the Supreme. So that's what it says. So the most important thing is to understand the distinction between the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, the field and the knower of the field. That's why this chapter is called Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Vibhaga, difference, the distinction, yoga. So differences between Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is Chetanam, sentient. Prakriti is insentient. Even the mind, it's like a moon. Moon, it's just inert. It doesn't have light of its own. But when the sun reflects, it looks as though it's illuminating everything. Mind is exactly like that. The Purusha is Nirgunam, attributeless. Prakriti is Sagunam, with attributes. Purusha is Nirvikaram, changeless. Prakriti is changing, Savikaram. Body is changing. We're getting old. Mind is changing every millisecond. It is Purusha, Satyam, independent. Mind depends on the Purusha. So Prakriti depends on the Purushas. Therefore, it is Mithya, dependent existence. Krishna highlights the fourth aspect in the last shloka. So those who know that they get the freedom from Prakriti, the cause of all beings is the Prakriti. Okay, so they know the distinction between the two. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yogo Nama Trayodashodhyayah.